happens when a Las Vegas Reformed Jewish rabbi and a Las Vegas Presbyterian pastor have a conversation as friends. They discover that no matter where you live or what you believe, faith matters. In this episode of Faith Matters, Rabbi Sanford Akselrad from Congregation near Tamid and Reverend Adrian from Green Valley Presbyterian Church introduce their new podcast. They talk about each other's congregations and denominations and why it's important to keep interfaith dialogue alive.
So Adrian, at long last, here's our podcast.
Here we are. This is exciting.
It is so good to be here with my friend Adrian, the pastor at Green Valley Presbyterian.
Green Valley Presbyterian Church, and I am so thankful to be here with my dear friend, Rabbi Sandy Akselrad from Congregation near Tamid in Henderson.
So, for, a few years now, we've been going to coffee shops and we've been commiserating as friends a little bit about our congregations, and sometimes we get into philosophical...
Kibbutzing, having fun.
Right. We're just enjoying each other's company. And then we came up with this idea of sharing our wisdom with each other's congregation. And so we did kind of a pulpit sharing, which I thought was great, and we got a great response. And that kind of pointed us into this direction, which is our very first podcast that is called Faith Matters, because I think that it's a little bit of a play on words. Faith matters to me, it matters to you, but we're also going to be talking about, quote, matters of faith. That is the goal of this podcast. So first of all, why don't we talk a little bit about, your congregation, just so that our listeners know what your church is all about and what your denomination is all about.
Sure.
And I'll do the same.
Green Valley Presbyterian Church has been in Henderson just over 20 plus years. Our history goes back to Paradise, which is part of Las Vegas.
And I thought you meant the Garden of Eden Paradise. You meant the street paradise?
The street paradise,
oh, okay.
The city paradise.
Okay, you were confusing me there.
Yeah, we go back to the Garden of Eden.
That's right. It's a very, faith-based podcast, Adrian. Okay, keep going.
And so we're celebrating our 40th anniversary next year. We're really excited about that. And it's interesting because I came from a church in Ohio. I've been at this congregation now 7.5 years. The one I served in Ohio was 175 years old. That was our anniversary. The year I arrived, I was there for 12 years. So that means, do the math, when I left, it was 187 years old. And I come to this church that is just barely over 30. And I'm thinking,
they're like newbies.
Right? Newbies, but they're not newbies in the faith, which is the wonderful thing. And they come from all over the country, and we are just a mixed congregation politically, socially, sometimes even theologically, but there is one thing that unites us, and that is just our desire to serve God and to make the love of God known here in Henderson and throughout the world. And so that's really what we try to focus on, the centrality. And I bet people want to know about Ner Tamid.
Well, Ner Tamid was actually founded in 1974, so we are going in our... pardon the pun, our Jubilee year.
Oh, I love it.
Our 50th year in 2024. So we're going to have a lot of activities. I've been their spiritual leader for 35 years. I can't believe it. I came in February 1988. We are a Reformed congregation. There's different denominations within Judaism, and probably we'll touch upon it as our podcasts go on. But there's Reformed, Conservative, and Orthodox as the three main denominations. And we tend to be a denomination that does not take the Bible literally, but we do view the Bible as a source of great wisdom, in which it's our encounter with God over the ages. And through that encounter with God, we develop our sense of values, which, according to tradition, go all the way back to the time of Moses. But of course, in Reformed Judaism, we believe that with the passage of time, those values are looked at, they're updated, and they reflect modernity. Because Reformed Judaism started, believe it or not, in Europe in the mid-1800s. So we are one of about 900 Reformed congregations in America, and part of the Union for Reform Judaism. We're very welcoming and open, and we hope that the
Even welcome
listeners,
Presbyterians, I've heard.
welcome Presbyterians.
Oh my
we
goodness.
we even welcome Jews. Okay, so sometimes that's a hard welcome. So that explains a little bit about who we are, and I think the other thing I wanted to talk about is why interfaith, because obviously this is an interfaith dialogue, and not every denomination of Judaism or Christianity
That's right.
or of other faiths believe in interfaith. They are more insular, and they feel that even having either contact with other people or trying to listen to outside beliefs could either be adverse, corrupting, or something that is not coming from a sincere place in their own faith tradition. And yet here we are, based on our friendship, but I think also as an extension of the beliefs of our own religious traditions.
And I think it's interesting because this did emerge out of our friendship and this ability to dialogue. But I also think it's the dialogue which enables friendships. And so I think we see that as if we were to cast a vision for what do we want for this podcast, we would see a vision where people talk to each other. And that's not necessarily, the phone's ringing?
You know, that's probably God.
That's,
what do you think? I mean, this is a low budget affair. So
budget.
So we do not have, special effects. But we'll just keep going with it.
We'll keep
rolling
going.
with it.
Okay. I spoke about this here at Dare to Meet, and when you came to our church, I think what we're doing is so needed today. It's so necessary. We live in this era where there's a lack of civility, where we don't know how to disagree and to continue to be friends. We don't know how to disagree and yet to ask the question, how is it that you come to this understanding and I come to that understanding? And maybe if we listen to each other, we'll come to another understanding, an even deeper understanding. It doesn't mean we give up our faith traditions or what we believe, but I think it enriches us, it helps us, and ultimately it helps us in our faith matters.
I think that's great. And I think that's the reason why we're here, and hopefully that's the reason why people are listening to the podcast. Which leads me to the theme for our very first podcast. It's a little bit on a play on words, which is, why are we here? We addressed the simple why are we here, so now we're going to get deep, Adrian.
Really
According
deep.
to your faith tradition, why are we here? What it's almost like, what's the meaning of life kind of question. Is that too deep for the first podcast?
Oh, I don't know. We'll find out. I'm sure somebody will let us know, right?
Yeah.
But I think, one of our responsibilities as leaders of communities of faith is to help people understand, and I'm sure you would agree with this, how do we help them apply the scriptural truths to their life, right? How do we help them to understand it? And so when we talk about these issues of faith matters, there's this understanding that, people have wrestled with questions of faith through all of eternity, right? Through all of our history, right? And so we're here to say, look, we want to talk about an issue. We want to say, how is it that we come to this? How is it that we can apply it? I think that's important for people to apply their faith to their daily living. It's not just something you do on Shabbat. It's not just something you do on Sunday morning. It should be something that's done 7 days a week, right?
So I want to attach it a little bit differently, but I think we end up in the same place. In Jewish tradition, when we look at the origins of man in a traditional setting of the Garden of Eden,
Yes.
and in Genesis, or what we would call in Hebrew Bereshit, there's a place in there. Well, there's two places that I'm thinking of. One is when man is created, and I use man with a capital M, when humanity is created.
Adam.
We are created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. So keep that first image right there. Then we go along further in the story, and Adam and Eve realize, they've had the bite of the fruit from the tree of life, and now they realize all of a sudden that they're aware that they have no clothes, and their understanding of the world is vastly different, and they've broken the rules, and they try to hide from God. And there's a question, where art thou? Now, of course, God knows where they are, so it's really a rhetorical question that says, where are you? So those two things speak to me about the whole purpose of the Bible. The one is to remember that as human beings, we are created in God's image. And when we lose sight of that, we fail. And so our purpose is to see the image of God in our fellow human beings, as well as ourselves. And the other is to ask ourselves every now and again, where art thou? Where are you? Are you being a better person, a better neighbor, a better husband, a better wife, a child, sister? Whatever our relationships are, where are you? What is your standing in relationship to each other, to yourself, and most assuredly with your Maker, with God? So I hope this little bit of wisdom interests our listeners, and we thank you for tuning in. This has been fun. I look
and we
forward
hope
to,
you're going to come back, right?
That's right. So stay tuned, because we hope that matters of faith matter to you, because faith does matter to both of us. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Faith Matters features Rabbi Sanford Akselrad from Congregation near Tamid and Reverend Adrian from Green Valley Presbyterian Church, and is produced by Leslie Snadowsky. We hope you join us again for our next podcast episode of Faith Matters.